Christine Blasey Ford claims that Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh assaulted her at a house party. According to the calendars that Brett Kavanaugh has entered into evidence, there is only one date at which he appeared to have been at a house party, July 1st, 1982. Tobin's house, workout, go to Timmy's for skis with Judge, Tom, PJ, Bernie, Squee. Now, the house that he was referring to on that calendar, presumably, was Tim Gaudette's house, which was 11 miles away from the Columbia Country Club, a 16-minute drive on I-270 away from the country club. And Christine Blasey Ford, in her testimony, said that it was a house not far from the country club. She didn't remember what the name of the house was, what the name of the person, what the name of the family was that owned this property. She did not use the name Tim Gaudette. This is just speculation in the media, okay? But even if it was Tim Gaudette's house where this party allegedly happened, that's 11 miles away from the Columbia Country Club, okay? A 16-minute drive on the highway. And Tom Kane, one of the people mentioned in that calendar, when he was asked if he has any recollection of Christine Blasey Ford ever being present at a party at Tim Gaudette's house, he said no. No recollection of Christine Blasey Ford being present at that house or at that property. And good reporting, by the way, by the Weekly Standard on that story. So, we know that Deborah Katz, was recommended to Christine Blasey Ford directly by Dianne Feinstein. Deborah Katz being the lawyer we know, or Lisa Katz, is it, Jim? Do we remember what Miss Katz's first name is? She's the lawyer. She was recommended directly by Dianne Feinstein. Cory Booker, one day before the Ronan Farrow New Yorker story, actually said, maybe more will come out. Wow. And then the next day there was a bombshell. But if you remember the first time that Ronan Farrow and Jane Meyer wrote their piece, the accuser's name was not in it. So they're like, maybe we can just do this without putting the woman's name in it. Ann Coulter wrote a column called No More Mr. White Guy, and this is an interesting perspective, basically that it's sort of a reverse O.J. Simpson trial. Whiteness is on America. You've got prep school, you've got brewskis, you've got football practice, you've got guys named Squee. This is white America on trial, Ann Coulter argues. At least according to the media, because she gives example after example of CNN commentators disparaging white people. It's kind of strange. Jeff Flake, the Arizona senator, the outgoing Arizona senator, was on 60 Minutes, and he said there's no way that he could have been able to, stall this thing and call for an FBI investigation if he was running for re-election. Well, he tried to run for re-election, and some people ran against him, and he realized he wasn't going to be able to win because he doesn't support President Donald Trump for president. So he's not running for re-election. He's a lame duck. And this is kind of his little moment at the end. The women who confronted him on the elevator were identified by the Center for Popular Democracy. One of the women is actually the co-executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy, which is a heavily George Soros-financed organization. So we have Debbie Ramirez, the second accuser. And apparently she's being interviewed about her claim that Brett Kavanaugh exposed himself at some point in time. We have a third accuser, Julie Swetnick, who is being represented by the lawyer Michael Avenatti, who has been in the media courtesy of CNN and the major corporate newspapers in the United States of America, listening to what he has to say. Julie Swetnick says that Brett Kavanaugh was part of some kind of cult, sex cult, something like that, gang rape parties. Obviously, Brett Kavanaugh has denied this. Now, Michael Avenatti is claiming that President Trump is somehow limiting the scope of the FBI investigation and not talking to his accuser, Julie Swetnick. Trump says that's not true. It was NBC News that reported this claim, so Michael Avenatti is not accurate, according to President Trump. President Trump says, interview whoever you'd like. in this case. Interesting. So Michael Avenatti continues claiming that Trump is limiting the scope of this investigation. It's pretty clear that the FBI just doesn't want to talk to Julie Swetnick because there's no evidence for any of these claims whatsoever. So this is an interesting moment in history, and I think that what we're seeing here is sort of the apex of reality show politics, whereby there are a whole lot of people out there in the United States of America now who are so absorbed in the media narratives surrounding these kinds of events and these kinds of cases that they are willing to put aside the truth. They're willing to put aside any concept of truth. They're willing to put aside due process. They obviously don't care very much about free speech, nor do they care about the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, nor do they care about the Third or the Fourth or the Fifth or the 10th Amendment. They don't care. There is a concerted left-wing effort right now to try to prevent any patriotic people or any conservative Americans from having political power again after Donald Trump surprised them all by winning the 2016 election. These people have now crossed the boundary into new uncharted territory whereby they are taking very qualified candidates, very qualified people for the Supreme Court, and they're turning them into reality show narratives. And a lot of the narratives that we're seeing in the media, including in the mainstream corporate media, are fictional narratives. So we have a point in history whereby institutions are becoming corrupt in the eyes of the American public. And so it's funny to me that there are still some Republicans who don't like Trump because they feel like Trump whipped up some kind of anti-establishment populist anger, and that's a bad thing for civil discourse in our country. Well, no. The thing that whipped up that kind of populist sentiment was the corruption of America's most trusted institutions. For decades, Americans believed Walter Cronkite, Edward Murrow, Tom Brokaw, the people that we saw on television. And you know what? They did a much better job than Anderson Cooper and the people now. But there has always been an effort by the media to influence politics inside of the United States of America. Senator Joe McCarthy said that, pointed that out in 1952. Maybe more people should have listened. It appears as if the mainstream media in this country is now engaged in a cyber war against the American people. And on the middle of the battlefield is the most prized possession: truth.